Greetings and salutations, fellow humans. It's the 4th of March, 2026, and I am Thaddeus Satori. Today I'd like to share some thoughts on the insanity currently happening around the world. First, I'd like to begin with a quote from the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. In individuals, insanity is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule. I'm afraid I have to agree with him on that. We humans have evolved to react to urgent situations without giving much thought, and this aided us greatly when we were still being eaten by more powerful creatures. For example, if I feared that the rustling in the grass was a lion and quickly fled the scene, I was much more likely to pass on my genes. This was true even if 99 times out of 100 the rustling was caused by the wind. Indeed, it was beneficial for our emotions to override rational thought. Not such a good trait to have in the modern world. We've also been programmed to rely on leaders for survival. Our innate submission to authority was formally illustrated in the 1961-62 Yale experiment by Stanley Milgram. It was designed to explain how individuals could participate in atrocities. Here's roughly how it went. Part 1. The setup. The experimenter was dressed in a white lab coat to signify his authority. Participants were called teachers, mid-level authorities, and they believed they were assisting in a study about memory and learning. They were instructed to punish the learner, the lowest in the hierarchy, with electric shocks for wrong answers. This learner was played by an actor who was part of the real experiment. He was strapped into what appeared to be an electric chair in an adjacent area where he and the teachers could communicate verbally but couldn't see each other. He had hooked up a tape recorder to the electroshock generator and played pre-recorded sounds for each shock level. As the voltage of the fake shocks increased, it was matched by the intensity of the screams, pleas, and protests. When the higher voltages were reached, the learner fell silent. Part 2. The generator. It was explained to the teachers that the shock generator ranged from a mild low of 15 volts to a lethal high of 450. The switches on the panel increased voltage by increments of 15 and were clearly labeled from slight shock all the way up to danger, severe shock. Part 3. Verbal prompts. When the teachers hesitated to increase the shock, they were given 4 ascending prods by the authority figure. The first were, "Please continue," or "Please go on." The second, "The experiment requires that you continue." Third, "It is absolutely essential that you continue." And fourth, "You have no other choice. You must go on." The results of the experiment were shocking. Though the teachers expressed varying degrees of distress along the way, every single participant went up to a whopping 300 volts, and a full 65% continued to the 450 volt level. Holy shit! Another insight into human psychology is conveyed by a quote attributed to Joseph Stalin. "One death is a tragedy, a million is a statistic." It wasn't until the 1960s that psychiatrist Robert Lifton formally labeled it psychic numbing. Here's a good illustration. When organizations are seeking donations to feed starving children, it's most effective to show just one child. When they show 2, donations decrease. After 3, compassion falls off a cliff. One contributing factor to this phenomenon is that we would be quickly overwhelmed if we were to personally take on all the heartbreak in this world. Our empathy simply must have limits, or we wouldn't be able to function. As with all human behaviors, each of us falls somewhere along a spectrum. Aren't we all righteous to some degree? This is clearly exemplified by the diverse reactions to the indiscriminate roundup and maltreatment of other humans by masked men, the recent shootings in Minneapolis, and the freezing to death of a blind refugee. On one end, you have those who defend both the perpetrators and the system that created them, and on the other, you have those who look on in gut-wrenching disbelief at the levels of cruelty and injustice. And now, yet another war in which millions will suffer and many will die. At a time we clearly need to be working together as a species, we are doing just the opposite. Over the millennia, we have had many great teachers trying to point out a better way. But those in charge didn't like being questioned, so they convinced enough of us to imprison or kill them. One such messenger was Jesus Christ. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 9, it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God." Ephesians 6:12, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." And 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7, "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres." God, if only we could take heed. By the way, if anyone is interested, I have put a longer list of Bible verses in the description. Please check them out. Finally, I'd like to leave you with an insight attributed to the Buddha. With our thoughts, we make the world. That's it for now. Love to all. Thanks for listening. Cheers.